What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Flicking with Skip. This is your host and friend for the evening, Skip Marazi, and I am here to run the Behind the Scenes Constant Space podcast, where we talk about movies and we work on the animatics for the Constant Space. So, if you are new here, I would recommend not starting on this video since this is the fourth in the series of the Final Destination Kills, part four. This one should be called The Final Destination Kills, to keep in step with the rest of the series that we're reviewing. If this is to be also lined up with the series that we're reviewing, this should be the worst podcast in this series. Um, I would recommend listening to it only as a bad example, a great example of a bad example. Um, so if you, yeah, you've been warned. It doesn't get any better from here. I'm just, of course. Because we're gonna have a fun time. We have been looking at the rankings of the Final Destination kills, and I have been here with my co-host Logan Gifford, who I imagine will be along shortly. Um, but we've been ranking them together, kind of talking through why and how. And for me, one of the big things is that we have been looking at kind of the Rube Goldberg aspect of the kills, how entertaining they are, how they fit in the series, and also how they fit in the movie. And so like the kind of the context for me, and payoff, I think payoff is the other one. For me, the context is kind of everything. So, please, by all means, if you agree wholeheartedly or disagree, um, tell us below in the comments. Let us know where you're thinking these rankings should be at. Maybe you think one of the rankings should be much higher, and you think it's because of a good reason. You should list that and tell us the reason, because I'm interested in knowing. Um, while this series is still going on, you could of course adjust the rankings and bring your suggestions so that all of us can hear what it is that your thoughts are on that. So, thank you in advance for doing that, and we're going to get started on the rankings of Final Destination. Now, we've been looking at the franchise as a whole. I put the list on random, put it in a spreadsheet, and randomized it as we went through the movie. I typed it into the spreadsheet because I'm a nerd like that, and then randomized it so that we could get, kind of a nice overall look at the franchise, kind of looking at the deaths individually apart from the movie, and of course considering them within the movie. Here we go. Kind of been tearing because we're going to be looking at the Final Destination kills, uh, which I've been dogging on the Final Destination quite a bit through this franchise, and part of it was because I didn't. The overall premise is sort of dull, and the movie is sort of plotting. So I think that I got bored in between the deaths, but when you look at some of these deaths, they are pretty fun. And I think that the more we look at them, the more fun we will see that they are. Like this one is paired up. So the guy in the Final Destination, the main character who survived the event, can't remember who died next in the sequence, right? Um, I don't know why this is a huge thing. I mean, because we know, because we sat through it, but also a lot of people died, and like I don't know. It was the NASCAR explosion. The one of the cool parts was the car flipping, and kind of the suspense of leading up to it. And then just because the budget couldn't support the film, the ambitions of the film, ah, and yeah. So anyway, so I wasn't super paying attention to the orbit either. But at the same time, I was the one, having the premonition, so I wouldn't hold that too hard against myself. while I do hold it real hard against this dude. Um, anyway, so they're like, who do we warn? Their thought process, who do we warn if you know, we don't know who died next, and so they gonna split up and warn both of them. This homeless woman throws a penny. This penny makes a pigeon poop on the girl who could be the one who dies next. Um, and then she poops on the windshield of the girl who's gonna die next, and then she decides to go to a car wash. Um, and then the girl, the guy rather, he starts to have this premonition about this warning about water, right? Um, there's this blonde guy who, he's just, an obnoxious character. The guy who acts him is either this way or plays him to a T. So bravo for his acting. It's This is where they throw the gratuitous tits into the movie, so that they have him hook up, and he's just a real dick about it. He walks outside. Apparently, he's just hooked up somewhere in like a really public location, like basically like a changing room at a fancy resort. Um, Anyway, uh, he gets his water gun from this kid. He's beside a pool. Uh, the the girl, meanwhile, so it's like two intercut scenes where like, oh God, who's it gonna be? The girl, meanwhile, he goes into the car wash, and you see that her sunroof is broken. Um, there's a couple of other things that happens. The cars and the quarter that she was going to put in goes into the drain. The car's antenna goes into the electrical box. It stops the car from moving on the track, and the girl gets trapped in the car wash without cell service. Her sunroof opens up. Water starts pouring in from a broken pipe. Um, the water fills up the car. So she eventually is like, her mouth is just like coming out the top, or like her head is coming out the top of the sunroof. Uh, Meanwhile, they cut back to the dude, and he's got this lucky quarter. Um, a golf ball knocks the lucky quarter out of this guy's hand and into the pool. And so the guy dives into the pool after it. Um, and this is the part, it's like taken straight from a Chuck Palahniuk short story. But a guy gets he somehow, this is the thing, right? Is I don't really understand the physics on this one, but he gets stuck to a suction. He suctions into a pool vent thing, and he can't get out. The suspense builds as the girl's like drowning in the car wash, and is actually eventually saved by the people who set out to save her. Um, and then the guy's guts are sucked out through his butthole and shot up, like, in 3D. Um, which I think, this might be the thing about the Final Destination, is that I may need to see it in 3D, and I think maybe I'll change my tune. Because there's like this shot where his guts come exploding out the whatever that's been sucking, um, you know, for the pool. Um, yeah, it's like you can tell it's like made for the camera, and maybe it would be fun. I don't know. Maybe that would redeem it. Um, so the girl is saved. The dude gets his gut sucked out. Um, it's pretty long. It's in a not great movie, which is sometimes affecting the ratings. Like some kills that are like, not great. Um, or that are like good, just good, get ranked higher sometimes. Uh, I'm not really feeling this one. It feels like it goes on for too long for what it's about. And in this movie, I think that's one of the things, is just like everything just seems to drag out for too long. So, um, I'm really thinking it's probably like D, maybe. In D, the top ranking in D is that we see Keckner getting killed, David Keckner getting killed. The weight falls. Um, oh, gotcha. The the guy gets his head smashed. Yeah, it's kind of, I feel like, in there. And like it's just like they're like okay kills. Um, and there's a lot of tension that builds up and all that sort of stuff. Um, let's see. Yeah, she has the girl. The bottom tier of that is the girl getting her eyes, like her face cut with the LASIK eye surgery laser, and then thrown out a window. Um, I would say that this has the action. Yeah, this is probably bottom tier, honestly, of D. It's not E. And it's over the fight in Final Destination 5. Actually, both the ones in Final Destination 5. I think this one is more like the Final Destination series. Girlfriend telling her boyfriend to drop dead or for getting hit. Yeah, see, those ones are more like that. These are kind of here. We have it playing both times. I'd say it's probably right under the Final Destination 1 kill, where the girlfriend gets hit, and that's like kind of like the OG. The first time we're like, oh crap, they just take characters out. Yeah, I mean it's not bad. It hits this series of actions hits the Final Destination concept, I guess, pretty well. That's not bad. Um, let's yeah. So I feel good about like that low D, mid to low D. Um, so cool. We're gonna move on to another Final Destination kill, which for me, we really do need to talk about this because I think it's utter bullshit. Um, just this way that this is done. Okay, so the Final Destination. There's a number of people. One of the people that's lasting right towards the end is a guy who is a security guard at the sporting event, the race car, whatever the NASCAR event that they're at. Um, and so we know that he's dying last. I think this is the one, if I remember correctly, where he tried to kill himself because he knew it was coming anyway or something like that. He just can't do it because it's not his turn to go. Uh, Funny bit, again, for the most part, this movie just seems to drag on and it doesn't have a whole lot of content. Again, there are some of the they have some really cool kills. Um, the one that we talked about extensively is the woman getting the rock to the eye. That's a really cool kill. That's in this movie. Um, and there's another one too that I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, actually, the getting eaten by an escalator. I really will probably need to rethink where that's at because it bothers me that it's ranked so high, but also it's a really great death. So I mean, what can I say? Um, So this one though, the black security guard, he's lasted almost up to the end. Um, he gets hit by a bus, and this guy gets set off on this premonition, right, where he's gonna start. He's gonna be the one who saves the day. He gets to the mall and does all this stuff, blah blah blah. It's right before So basically, he saves the day. He saves them from the movie theater or tries to save him from the movie theater. He saves him from the escalator and all this whole like, the second premonition in a Final Destination movie because they didn't have the balls to do that as their conclusion, and I will stand by that. But so, but like this guy, so right before, so it flashes back, and then the black guy gets hit again by a bus. So like the premonition's like dumb, like for that guy, right? Like it sucks. Like why? This guy, you know what I mean? Like, he's Christ, like they just do him so dirty. And he is part of a really cool death that I do want to talk about. This is the one that I didn't remember earlier. We haven't gotten to it yet. Um, and we need to talk about it because it's a fun in this movie. It's a fun statement that they make in this movie. Uh, but they do this black security guard dirty. I would say that we should put it in the shadow realm, but actually, I want to comment about how bad it is, and we should not forget how bad this death is, lest they repeat it. So I would say it's probably our lowest rank, the F tier. Um, that you know we haven't had anything in there. We've been talking about it. This is definitely one that I think is like it's not so bad that we shouldn't talk about it, and also the way that it's bad. Damn, damn. Oh, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Final Destination Bloodlines. Yeah, fucking robbed. You fucking robbed. This one is actually lower than that because this one is it it's just they do this character dirty. Like there's no reason to keep him around this long or even write this character. Again, that's sort of like some of the things that bother me about the Final Destination, the Final Destination is that it's just like they just it's so pointless. Also, there's some of their lives and deaths are just so pointless. Um, so yep, that's it. F tier. F tier it is. All right, moving along to the Final Destination, the first movie. Man, I hate this death so much. Also, I can't tell if I'm in a bad mood or if we're just in like the worst part of the Final Destination films. I mean, really, I mean, let's be honest, right? We've been pretty good and pretty lucky. We've been like surprised at like how awesome this has been, like we're like, wow, Final Destination is really great. And then I think it's because we hadn't noticed we hadn't got to all the ones where people were like, yeah, but do you remember? And here we are. Do you remember this one? Um, there's a lightning that strikes a power line, um, and at the very end of the movie, as Claire's like trying to escape, and it like hits a lightning strikes like this clothing rack. And then this rogue power line like chases her and like kills a car, lights the gasoline on fire, and explodes the car. Um, this actually isn't even fair. I'm gonna skip it. This shouldn't be it. Well, because it's like he sacrifices himself, quote unquote, but he doesn't really. I think that he like dies temporarily or something. This is one of the things that the loophole deaths. Um, I don't know. It's not even to be talked about. I'm just gonna take it off the list basically. It's sorry for doing that. Final Destination 1, boo, the ending. It's just dumb, Like they didn't know what to do with it. And like, oh, you're always on the run from death now. Um, I think that's yeah, because they go to Paris and they're at the cafe, and then the final shot is the sign swinging. Um, it's okay. It's okay. It's the first movie, but um, I think eventually the dude ends up dying off screen. So anyway, um, actually, so the next death on the list is the Final Destination opening premonition with the car accident. Um, so let me give you the setup if you don't know what it is. So opening of the film, they're at this car racing, NASCAR basically. They're going around in circles a bunch of times. See this bench break. The stadium's kind of crumbling. They spilled motor oil. A car loses control on an oil slick, and a screwdriver that's left on the car falls onto the track. And punctures the car's tire that makes it flip. And then a woman's like immediately decapitated by a tire. A car smashes into the audience. The bench becomes a spike. A couple sliced in half. A woman smashed by a flying engine. Stadium falls on people. Fireball consumes the main character, and then it throws this kid, the main character, back onto this spike. So like it's cool. The car flipping, I think, is really cool. Again, like the setup, like I was talking earlier, for like it's fun. They were trying some stuff. I think with a budget, they did have a budget and they put it here. You don't care much about the characters in this movie. And the CG here again. I'm gonna have to hold back full judgment, but I'll tell you what I saw from seeing it is that it looked cheap and cheesy. Like it was hard to be like stoked about seeing it. They were very ambitious, but the what they were working on was not living up to what they wanted it to be. And then the rest of the franchise too, you know what I mean? So yeah, and it's a premonition, so it's not even a real. None of the deaths occur. I want to say pretty low. E, like E maybe. Like those ones are pretty like real, just like cheap deaths, and I feel like that's what this movie sets up with this is that there's just going to be cheap deaths. Um, so yeah, let me see for some reason it's not let me cut. What we have in the really low ranking is that yeah, a semi smashes their friends, and then the engine smashes. I think this is what for from this movie. Oh no, it's from Final Destination 3. A truck ends up smashing um, the engine out of another car onto this guy. Um, I would say, yeah, it's in my opinion, this whole premonition is like down there. Um, I don't know if it's. I mean, yeah, we're not robbed. I don't feel like we're robbed. And that's kind of what F tier is like kills are so bad that we feel robbed. Um, so that's not the case, but like I'm just like it is, especially since it's the opening of the movie. It's real weak. And I don't know. I think they were hoping that it'd sell on the 3D, but um, okay, cool. So we're actually looking at the death that I was talking about earlier. So from the first Final Destination 1 kill, the scene I was talking about with the whole, cable and all that, um, that is, we find out, he survived, and we're supposed to be like, yay, we like this guy, but I don't. He's not fun. He's not a fun character. Again, I don't know him as an actor because he didn't, as far as I know, he hasn't done a whole lot. I should look him up at some point just to know. Chat. So obviously, I'm an idiot. Here he is his IMDb. I'm real dumb. Devon Sawa is definitely a well-known person. I mean that I didn't like him. That's personal preference and possibly the script and whatever in that movie. But like, look, he was in Little Giants. He's in Casper. He's on the miniseries Lonesome Dove. He's in Now and Then. Uh, he he's in Wild America, SLC Punk, Idle Hands. Then he's in Final Destination. Um, he's playing Stan in the Dido Stan music video. Um, he's in the movie Slackers. He's in the TV series Spider-Man, but I mean, obviously you're not going to see his face there. Um, he is working on NCIS. You see that he's doing like TV, which is good. But he's continuing to work. I mean, like look at the years. He's continuing to work. He's not working. He's doing good. Plus, he also has Final Destination, which I'm sure Hobie's getting like streaming rights and all the money from that. So, but also not resting on that and continuing to work. He does a whole miniseries called Nikita, which I haven't seen, but ran for 3 years. He did 32 episodes, so good for him. Um, he's an exorcism of Molly Hartley. Uh, he did the sequel. I didn't know there's a sequel to SLC Punk, but he shows up on Somewhere in Between for 10 episodes in 2017.
He's on MacGyver for an episode. He's definitely working TV in the 2000s. If you've been watching TV commonly, you definitely been seeing him. Um, he's actually in. This is fantastic. He's in the Chucky series for 20 episodes. I really want to see that and see how it does. Maybe that's the one to catch up with him on. Bro, maybe I'm gonna cover Chucky and we'll talk about that. And then he's on the current, yeah, he's in the current Twisted Metal series. So, shout out to Sawa, who I was dogging on. He looks like he's grown up to be a regular looking dude. Maybe I shouldn't judge him for being a kid in that movie. And I will check back in with you guys in the future. No. Um, but yeah, so I'm like, like I don't like him. A lot of people are cooler than he is in this movie. Um, but anyway, so this death is the one that it's like wrapping up, and they're like all they're like in that France, and like I can't believe we escaped and we finally survived and we made this trip, and then they're like, oh no, death is still stalking us, stalking us. A bus misses the kid, cuts a cable that makes a sign swing that kills this guy. Actually, the guy from the Sean William Scott kill, where he was messing around being like, I don't want to die, except for he just put everyone in peril by parking his car on the train tracks. Um, so this death is I think it's one of those cheap ones. I think it's probably going to be E tier, um, and just because it's so cheap. Actually, this is the boyfriend that the girl says drop dead to. Um, so it's only appropriate that even in their ranking they should be put together. I don't know, poetic justice maybe. Um, nope, nope. That's further up. This one's down here. But I mean, there is something to be said where it's like it's setting up you can never escape death. It kind of does set up the franchise. If you look at it from the perspective of the people who watch it for the first time without knowing how these movies were going to go, it is surprising. If it's done in a later movie, I don't think you could get away with it. Um, and it is like it is a surprise, and then you find that out. So. I would say, okay, I'm saying what's in E tier. I was being kind of glib, but as I'm looking at D, I see that yeah, it's pretty weak, but you see Death still doing its thing. I would say probably under the Control Tower Death, um, because that one is cooler as far as like visuals, but like I that's the only difference I can see between the two of them. So yeah, like very low D. Um, so that would be my vote there. Okay, let's talk about Final Destination Bloodlines, and this one is pretty fantastic. In my opinion, that there's there's something to be said about this, even though the one that leads up to this is cheap. The death, the mom's death is right before this, feeling a little bit robbed, feeling a little bit raw, right? But only because of what happens in this scene. And in this scene, what we find out is that, like, so the junior is like getting ready for the senior prom. He's there with the girl's dad and her dad, the main character's dad,
she's like being a part of his life like he had hoped, and that she's not being so distant and scared anymore because they feel like, they finally like settled like their death. um, they got it all figured out. And then the other dad turns out to be a doctor, and he goes, ah ha ha, ah ha ha, because they're talking about, how she nearly survived death and her brother saved her and how courageous he was. And he goes, ah ha ha, but she wasn't really dead, was she? Because her heart didn't stop. And so you really just revived her. And so they look all scared, and then there's this thing about the lucky penny that's been happening throughout this movie, which is nice, thematic, like little through line. Um, Visually not necessary at all, but it's just it's a nice like visual cue to be like, oh, trouble's around the corner. It's kicking off the series of events. Um, whoever wrote it thought it was really clever, and I will give you that it is a nice, clever device. But you have to agree that it's not necessary. Like the audience is smart enough to like recognize when it's kicking off. But for people who do need that little cue, um, you know, again, it was nice of them to throw that in there. What I know, I've never personally made a movie in my life, so um, I have opinions. People have done them. The fact that they've done them trumps my opinion all the time. If it doesn't sound congratulatory, I apologize. It is, in fact. I do. I'm celebrating these people as making movies, and that's why I talk about them. It's because I enjoy movies so much. Now, I am in awe and it's sort of enamored with the entire process and the people who are involved and all the parts that it takes. Um, so. Anyway, when I analyze films, it's from that this like sheer like adoration for every single part of the process. Um, so that being said, uh, the uh, the old lady who found the penny, the lucky penny, loses it and it rolls onto the train tracks. She's Then I think in my notes it says she's reliving the dream. I think the girl is like telling the story. Um, but then they see that, or they get the news and they're like, oh, Junior, we have to run because they hear this like tearing sound. And so they start running, and you see the train like tear through, like it's wrecked, right? But it's like crashing through a neighborhood, and it's like tearing up like houses and stuff as it like skids wildly out of control behind them as the two of them are running for their life down the street. And then a train car that's full of logs flips, and two logs shoot out the train car and smash them one by one in the street. No cut. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you end a fucking movie, especially a Final Destination movie. That is a fucking ending. And that is why the Final Destination loses points for not getting the escalator scene right, because that would have been fantastic. Instead, they cheap out for the other ending, which I can't remember. I think it's the cafe and one of them's the train, because the three does it too. They opt for the much weaker ending. Um, but this one has our hero running for her life and still losing it because you don't win against death, right? Um, so it is the cheapness of this is, we found that out about the mom's death. That it didn't do shit. That her dying, us believing that she died, and that the mom's sacrifice was worthy. I'm just like, you know. Um, so for me, probably that's over. And it's I don't feel like it ties into this death. I think it's a nice surprise. It is a French cuisine, the same like French scene we were just talking about, because it's the same surprise, but it's also fresh because they played with our understanding of the Final Destination movie. Um, I, I want to say B, because it's such a good conclusion. Um, the highest one in B is the escalator. And really, because this one is real and this one trumps, I mean, there's so many good Rube Goldberg things in that though. That's hard to say. Yeah, these ones really are Rube Goldbergy as far as like the whole thing. That one is kind of train explosions, so I'm gonna have to say it's probably not B. So we're probably looking at a high C then. Yeah, high C would make sense. Cookout explosions there, where it's the kind of tie-up scene. Um, Sean William Scott's head being taken off is the top of that. I'd have to say that this is it. Like this is, it's better than that for sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna have to give it a high ranking. I don't want to say that it's low anything. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I would have to say it's like it's a high C for sure. So I keep accidentally tapping into the cell to the left, which is where, the letter C is in this table, which you can guess by this point is pretty filled with content. And so the letter C, which is sitting at the bottom of the cell, is way down there. I'm trying to put something at the top. Anyway, that was what that quick inhalation of breath was like, geez, I just freaking did it again. So, Um, guys, if you haven't heard, this is a Cox on Space podcast. It's a behind the scenes flicking the skip where I work on animatics and talk about movies with friends who come in. Uh, Tonight, Logan was supposed to be here. I have not heard from him, but I'm sure that he had something that came up, and we are looking at the the behind the destination sorry, final destination movies and ranking the kills. So if you want to find out more about what I'm working on, the Cox in Space project, you can go to coxinspace.com, check that out. And you can see the little clips that we have up so far, catch more of the shows, and check out the schedule, what we got going on. You can get connected with our Discord, and so you can come hang out with us on any of these shows, catch them live instead of on the YouTube. You can also click on our Facebook, get connected with the group that hangs out there if that is more of your speed. And from there, talk to Aaron Cosville about coming onto the show. You can just post that you're interested in that group, and there'll be people to talk to about those things there. Um, yeah, whatever you're interested in, we're interested in talking to you about because that's how we find out interesting things about the world, in my opinion. Um, so I hope that you'll take advantage of that and come hang out with us. You can also get connected with our Patreon, which is, of course, where we can get funding so that we can keep bringing the show to you. Uh, these shows, not so much, but more importantly, that we get to spend more time working on Cox in Space, which gets the show to you faster. Um, it should be a no-brainer that the more time that we have to spend on the show, the sooner we can release it. So, if you're excited about Cox in Space, where it's going, what it's been doing, go over to our Patreon and help us out. You can it's just when you click the button called Join the Crew, you can decide whether or not you want to be a cadet, science officer, or bridge officer, and we'll get talking about that. Shout out to our longest running supporter and biggest contributor, Jomo, who has been a guest here on the show and is also a voice actor for us on the show. Um, if you're connected on the Discord, you can go check it out. I believe that it's in the Cox Writing podcast, the Cox Writing text group. We have recordings of episode 1 and 2 of the Cox in Space. So if you guys are interested in checking that out and want to see, all the behind the scenes stuff that we do have going on, check out our Discord. Check out our Patreon, check out our Facebook. And then, most importantly, of course, where you're at, where you're probably catching this on YouTube, like, comment, share. We do want to hear from you guys, and we do want to keep the conversation. With this one especially, if you're disagreeing with where I'm ranking, especially on an episode to, like today, where it's just me talking about my opinions about it, I would like to hear what you have to say about it, because as you know, I don't believe I'm correct in most of the things that I do or say. And I think that's healthy. That keeps us from, like, making huge blunders. Checking and double checking, in my opinion, are the safest and best thing that you can do. So yeah, please comment below if you're like, you know what, you were really unfair to, so and so, the final destination. Here's why. Um, And then check it out in a couple of weeks. We're going to do a wrap up episode where we go over all the rankings from start to finish, hopefully, to kind of talk about where they are and what they are. Um, so, yeah, that this has been Cox and Space podcast, and this is behind the scenes flicking and skip, and we're going to get back to it. Um, so. Excuse me, guys. My throat's super, super dry for some reason. And thank you for bearing with me. Here is that's grody. Here's the next skill. It's from the Final Destination. Um, so this one is startling. It's funny. There's also it's bizarre because this character, okay, so generally in the Final Destination, there's like a group of characters, right? And they're all like teaming up together to try to, take on death or escape death or whatever their thing is, right? Well, this one just has this random unnamed cowboy character. This is the part of the problem with this movie where I'm often like, why? Why do you even have? Why do these characters exist? They have no, kind of like it seems like the thought process in the writing of this film is like, well, they're gonna die anyway, so like, why would we spend any time getting to know them? It's like, Jesus, dude, like that's exactly why you'd want to spend time getting to know them, so that we like agonize over their deaths. So like, this actually means something versus just, I don't know, um, random slaughter. So. Um, Anyway, here is this random cowboy who's been identified. Um, there's this. So he's wounded from something. I can't remember what it is. It's something altogether separate. Um, but he's like in the hospital, and so they're rushing to the hospital to see him. And then there's just like this old guy, right? Truly unconnected. He's just like been set up to have a bath or some physical therapy or something. He's just this like grouchy old guy. He's giving the nurse a hard time, and then she gets distracted for a second. She leaves, and then the water starts overflowing. And the guy can't do anything about it. He's just watching the water overflow, because he's there for his physical therapy. So, whatever is making it. And so he's hollering, and then you see, it cuts to like the random cowboy, and the random cowboy now has water like pouring out of the ceiling. And so you're like, wait, what? And then it like shocks the electrical, for his like vitals, so he can't like signal, and like like he's going off of his like whatever, the thing that life support. Um, and so the random cowboy like flips. So I think something happens, like it's like he was meant to die in the premonition, but he actually just gets wounded, or like get scorched or something at the stadium. And this is what's happened, is like he didn't get killed, so death's still after the random cowboy. I think that's what's going on. Anyway, Death has a hard on for this dude because he goes off life support, and the cowboy kind of like is like clued into what's going on somehow. And so he starts like, he's like pulling things off. He starts crawling across the floor, like trying to escape. Um, And so he's like crawling and he's like trying to get to the door and he's like so brave and you feel for him and then the ceiling collapses and he's smashed by the old guy in the tub. So um I think it's funny. But this is one of those. It's one of those cheap ones. Again, it just there's not all the guy doesn't even have a name. Yeah, I can't tell you anything specifically about. I can't even remember how this guy has ended up in the hospital, and that has something to do with the movie itself because it's just like why are you doing these things? Like why? Like the logic is just like jacked. Um. Anyway, yeah. So I'm thinking it's probably like D or E. Um. Yeah, probably an E. Um. Over the stadium view, um, over the engine coming out because you actually have this nice little lead up to it. Oh man, actually over. Hmm. Now I'm because it's actually it does have this Rube Goldberg thing. Uh, so even though he does have a name, I have to say it's probably because I thought it was going to be E, but I'm saying it's looking better than some of these low Ds. Um, yeah, I have to say it's over the kill in Final Destination 5 where Roy gets his nemesis killed. Um, but yeah, probably under the two near water deaths. Um, of the guy getting his gut sucked out. Um, I'd say that's probably fair. All right. On to the next kill is to be looking at one in Final Destination 3. All right, so Final Destination 3 is a very strange movie. It's trying to exploit the fear of roller coasters, um, which is fun. It's a fun attempt. Like I said, for movies, like I do the fact that it's made, I think is awesome. So like that says a lot. Like it's not easy to make a movie. It takes a lot of like doing. That's like it takes a lot of doing to make anything. So, and movies because there's so many moving parts, and so many different departments that have to come together for one project. Again, I do have a lot of like uh what's it called? I do celebrate movie making quite a bit. This is why flicking the skip. This is why, I do what I do. Um, is I'm working towards moving in that direction as well. I want that to be making them, and so I do recognize that. It's hard to do. Um, so that being said, the Final Destination 3 is a very the premise is not there's a lot to be desired with it. It's a senior night. They're riding roller coasters and stuff, and that's the setup. It brings us back to the first one, with the whole like high school motif, and I think that's where they're trying to like replay their success. Um, maybe they heard things about Final Destination 2 or something, and I don't know. They did so well on that the second one. The third one is just a fall off. Anyway, this is towards the end of the movie, and this is because the sister of the main character, who was supposed to be she wasn't supposed to be at the carnival that night, was, and so she ended up being part of this whole, the roller coaster going awry, and somehow she got killed too. You can tell I care a lot about this particular character. Sarcasm. So, there is. Oh wait, hang on. Yeah, okay, gotcha. So I kind of put these whole things together. They they've gone and they think that they've escaped death. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of too many things at the same time and not making sense to both of them. Um, So, because as I was looking at stuff, I was like, okay, cool, cool. I kind of see where the thought is of where these deaths align together, and I'm trying to help you understand who may not have seen the movie, um, to see how they come together. Um, so they go to this like festival, like a fall festival or something like that, where there's like, some carousel rides, there's like, little games to play and stuff like that. Um, it's maybe like a Fourth of July event, could be. It has like patriotic things going on. I don't know, fairs that happen at the end of the year, possibly. Anyway, so the main character's little sister's there. She steals the good luck charm. The goth dude who has been like, uh, you know, like not believing but acting like a weird creep. Uh, he decided at one point he's going to try to take death into his hands and kill somebody, which is the first introduction of this into the series, which is kind of interesting. I say kind of interesting, although not very. So it's done in a more interesting way later. But it was the first introduction. Like if you can get somebody to take your place, um, then you would make death happy. Uh, I don't know. I don't think you'd win the game. In my opinion, that doesn't seem like that would be the thing that would happen there. Um, and only because you're gonna die someday. Entropy is kind of built in the whole system there. So death is still gonna win because death always wins. So anyway, couple crazy things that happen. So the Rube Goldberg thing sets off, um, and that is where fireworks display that's supposed to blow up. Cannonball gets knocked loose and upsets a trailer hitch. Um, the guy and his sister have words as the fireworks display starts. Um, and then the kids start throwing novelty firecrackers to spook a horse. The horse drags the sister by the throat with a loose tether rope. The guy, the boyfriend, something, saves her from getting pulled through like a grain thresher. Um, and then the girl's friend, who was also at the carnival when she wasn't supposed to, gets like just randomly has a flagpole spear her through. It's a good practical shot. I mean, it's really fantastic that they pulled it off. Not quite sure if you guys do know how that shot's pulled off. Comment below. It's fantastic. So that happens in this one, and then they avoid an attack from something like there's like sandbags that are launched off of a trailer that gets hit. And then the goth guy is like ranting, he's been like trying to kill him. He's like, you can't stop me. I'm gonna take your life instead. Fuck death and all this. And then um, he's smashed by a lift that's holding the McKinley sign. The name of, I think his name. I think that's the irony of it is he's smashed by the weight of his own name. Um, so Final Destination 3 Agent. No, not top tier, not top tier stuff. The sequence is kind of interesting in the way that it's doing a lot of this stuff. It is kind of surprising. I'm gonna say it's probably low. Probably low. How low, you ask? Well, let's see. It's probably pretty low. Um, I'm guessing probably D, low D. Um, because it's kind of just like all over the place, like death's coming at them from every angle, but not coordinated and not really great at it for some reason. Um, so so people get killed, almost get killed. There is the good practical effects that happen, the flagpole and the person getting smashed, like the dude getting smashed by the sign. But it all just feels so pointless. It's like the death of like characters we don't care about, and then the final girl who's still surviving, because of course she's going to until she's not. Um, so I kind of want to rank this one underneath the out of control truck in E and above the stadium vision. Guys, for some reason, and if you know me, you'll know this is strange. But for some reason, I really, really want some Ruffles potato chips. And that's not me generally to be wanting to eat a bunch of empty calories and carbs. It's and not even that flavor, but if I told you specifically that it's that sour cream and cheddar chip, that's specifically the type of chip that I'm looking for right now. And I'm not saying looking for isn't physically seeking. I'm just my brain for some reason wants that flavor in particular. So there you go. More information that you didn't need to necessarily know about me, but now you do. All right. So we're gonna be looking at the next skill, and that is in the Final Destination. And in the Final Destination, we have uh, yes, no. Okay, I'm sorry. I was hoping that we were gonna have like the what am I the kill from the Final Destination that is actually good. Um, but we don't. We have this kill, and we do have to talk about it, especially because how bad it is. And I will say that in the Final Destination, that again, this is probably one that you have to see in 3D because the way they set up the shot makes it looks bad in 2D. But I can see if it was in 3D how you would kind of like it. Even though like I said, I don't. I don't like it. But here's the thing that happens is they go to warn this mechanic, hey, you're gonna die, and he's like, yeah, as usual, you guys, you're a bunch of crazy kids, like I'm not even interested in you at all. Um, so you see like there's these welding tools, you see the tanks of gas, the truck lift that's right over him drops unexpectedly. And then there's all this big freak out and all this, and then this can of spit that's on top of the compressor spills onto a winch that traps him behind a van that almost crushes this mechanic. So you see like this van come all the way down and like basically just like push him up against the fence. Um, and then the mechanic's like, see, you guys are all crazy. It's not my turn to die. And then that's when the cable wheel breaks free and it hits the oxygen tank and it flies. The oxygen tank flies at the mechanic and it pushes him through the chain link fence. It's such a silly way for them to kill off somebody. Like it would have been so clean. This is the problem with the Final Destination, right? We've talked about a bunch. Is like they had deaths that could be so clean of a way to like do them. You'd be like, oh, and then they decide to get silly with it for some reason. And so like this is one of them. Like they're like toying with us, for no real reason, and then they push him through a chain link fence, which I don't know. I don't think that's a thing that can physically happen. People have bones. Um, so I mean it might hurt, but I think it could even cut, down to the bone, but you're not gonna like mince bones through a fence with an oxygen. Anyway, um, this is I'm gonna rank this real low, in because for this one reason, like the Final Destination doesn't deserve this as part of it being part of the franchise. Um, like this is like a cheap kill that could show up in any goofy horror movie. And the Final Destination is really better than this kill. And they've proved it, you know what I mean? So like the person who put it in this movie to be like, yeah, like they really did the franchise a disservice. I wouldn't say I feel completely robbed by it, but I would say we are looking at some E tier where I'm like, yeah. Um, Actually, even below the first hallucination is where I'd put that. Um, of the Final Destination, in the cars exploding and all that, because it's just like it just feels so bad, right? Like it's just like you see the setup coming, and then they're like, "Oh, we got you," and then like it's just this cheap, "We got you," and then now our brains have to be like, "Oh yeah, you totally tricked me. People don't have bones," you know. So anyway, that's the vote there is bottom of E. Um, and count itself lucky that, I'm feeling generous. It's not the very bottom of the list. Um, all right. So cool. Now we're talking about the death that I want to talk about. And I think that this is really, really fun that it went this way. Wow. Okay, we really did save most of the trash for the end because I'm looking down this list. We only have a few more. We'll probably be able to get these done before tonight, in this episode, and just sort of possibly review them the next episode. Or guys, vote. We might be starting a Christopher Nolan series, which is a director that I've been wanting to cover for a while because I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan, all of his work. Really, there's some movies I don't like as much. There's some he took some years where he did some other stuff, but he doesn't need my approval. He's doing his work. You know what I mean? But I'm a huge fan of him doing his work, even if I don't necessarily like the movies he's doing. I always appreciate what he's doing. Anyway, but we say the trash thing because only the last things on the list are um, from the Final Destination and Final Destination 3. So Logan may have looked down this list and he thought to himself, you know what? We've dogged on at the Final Destination and Final Destination 3 quite a bit already. If they want to hear my comments on that, since he's less passionate about how bad these films are than I am, they're like, they can just replay my commentary, which is me being like, yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah, Skip. Those movies, they ain't great. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just throw in some of Logan's commentary, just for, just additional weight. Um, uh, Guys, if you don't hear it, that means that I like thought the joke was funny, but then I went to go find the bits and I was like, Lord, I don't have time to do this. I wish that I had an editorial editing assistant to be like, hey, can you just go find this thing real quick? Um, yeah, so that, or we can keep the pace on other things. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Let's take a look and let's talk about the Final Destination kill that I do enjoy quite a bit. So, um, there's this redneck in the Final Destination, which of course there is at a NASCAR event, right? One of the things that's interesting about the Final Destination that doesn't happen. I can't say wholly that it doesn't happen, but it's a less common thing in the franchise. Is that some people get warned and then some people get killed right away. Actually, I think what happens is the redneck and his girlfriend get out, during the first warning because they're taken outside because they're fighting, maybe. And then she's the one who gets decapitated by the tire, which is the first one that we put into the shadow realm, because it's such a cheap death. But it pays off in this way. Uh, the redneck begins to believe that what he can do is the thing that they suggested in Final Destination 3 is that he could probably kill somebody and have them take his place. And since he's a redneck and also obviously a racist, because he's the one who drops the hard R word, hard the N word with the hard R. He drops the hard R word, and you're like, what is he talking about? But like he just like jumps up in this black dude's face at a funeral or memorial or whatever, and he just like throws it around as a slur. It's just like wow, wow, out of left field. Why are we doing that in this movie? And then they're like, because we want you to hate him. I'm like, yeah, you could have done that in different ways. Anyway, so he decides to try to murder the black guy. Um, the black security guard. But remember in this episode we've talked about. Remember in this episode, we this is the one where instead of him getting murdered by this racist dude, the plot decides to kill him by getting him hit by a bus. So I don't know which is a worse fate. It just, you could be like, oh man, that racist, he really did that guy dirty. Or man, the guys who wrote this movie, they really, they really did that guy dirty. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. Maybe one or the other. But black guy doesn't die this time. The redneck does. And so he's drunkenly driving he's of course driving a tow truck. Um, and he sideswipes the vehicle as he comes around the corner. Um, the hook on his tow truck and the chain comes loose. Um, and then he decides he's going to get real racist, and so he starts digging a hole in the black guy's lawn, um, so he can put up a cross. And then this radio turns on, and then he looks over to the truck and he sees that the tow truck it's locked because of a series of Rube Goldberg events, and it's driving itself down the street. Um, and The radio is blaring "Why Can't We Be Friends" as the hook from the tow truck catches the redneck by the cuff of his pants and starts dragging him down the street. A spark ignites the dragging chain and it lights up the guy on fire from the alcohol that got spilled earlier. And then the black security guard comes out, and he watches as this tow truck that's not being driven by anybody is dragging this like screaming racist guy who's on fire as the music's playing. Why can't we be friends? Um, like the woman's death, she goes to the hair and she, gets her hair done and everything, and then she finally gets killed at the end, which is, high irony and very, very funny. This one also is. This is like one of the highlights, in my opinion, of the Final Destination, because I mean, it's just so goddamn goofy, and like silly, so. I want to rank it pretty high, especially since it's in such a bad movie. For that, because it does everything it needs to. It does the Rube Goldberg thing. It's entertaining. We understand the characters and what they're doing, what they're motivated by. It's weak because it's like such a like heavy-handed thing to do, but at the same time, it's the only one of the few characters in this movie who has like a motivation. He's grieving over his girlfriend, and he doesn't like a black guy. Two great things that would motivate murder. I can believe it. It's plausible. I don't support it as a cause, in case you are thinking that's what I'm saying. But like, just that, it's, like I can understand him as a character. And so that makes him well written, right? And then also we get to see just the absolute silliness of him getting dragged down the street, racists getting what they deserve. And I mean that. Fucking racists should get dragged down the street, lit on fire by their own car, like by their own car. Fuck off and die. uh you're not superior because you have a different color skin or from a different ethnic group or anything. Like give me a fucking break. We're all humans. Like we came into this world naked. We're trying to figure out what the experience is, and it's terrifying. And like we're lucky that we can just get through a day. And it's gonna be over before we know it. You know what I mean? So just miss me with all that shit that has anything to do with like, that you can hate somebody because they whatever. Just like stop. Stop. All right. So I want to rank it almost an S tier. Um, yep, yep, because that's where that woman, going to have her spa day and then getting killed by a rock thrown by a lawnmower is. I think it's better than that one because it literally is funny. But the next one up is from Bloodlines, and it's the MRI where the spring is sucked from um, the vending machine, and I can't say that it outdoes that. Um, so I'd have to say, yeah, as far as like S tier goes, that would be right up there, right below Bobby and his brother getting killed. All right, kids. Well, we're we're coming around the bend here. Um, and looking at some of the last kills to rank. All right, so oh geez. One of the things about the Final Destinations as a series is it has um, two or three. It's probably just two. I think it's only two. Like really very unlikable main characters. And both of them are male. And I can't quite put my finger on why I don't like them, except for the word douchey comes to mind. Like for some reason, it seems like they cast like a douchey dude to be like our fill-in, and they think that's what a normal guy is. And I'm just like, whenever this guy talks in both the first Final Destination, and the Final Destination, I'm just like, ugh, guy, like, please, please stop. And I don't know why I think all the female characters are more fun, because it's not like they have much more to do. Like they're like, oh, we've got to fix some things, rather they're the boy or the girl. So I don't know. Maybe because I'm used to seeing women do that in movies, and having a guy be super generic hurts somehow. I don't know. That was kind of a dick thing to say, so I apologize. I will take it back, but I can't actually do that because of the way that time works. So. Anyway, that's to say that the guy here in the Final Destination and this kill, he's become like this huge like safety dork at the end of the movie because he's like, he wants to make sure that everything's rigorous and safe at all times. This is when I got to the Final Destination, is when I started to believe that maybe this was an OSHA psyop, where I was like, yeah, they definitely want us to like be safety conscious at all times, and so they're gonna do horror movies so that we'll think about things that could kill us, something like that. But then and that might explain why the douchiness, like they're like, oh yeah, that's what a cool guy is, who's really safe and conscious, and he says words that like are blocky and whatever. Yeah, they speak in blocky. That's what it sounds like. They're just like these are the lines. These are my lines, and then you say your lines. Anyway, that's I don't I don't like them. But he's a very safety conscious dude. He's greeted by this homeless guy. The friend he gave money to. He says, "You just have to be in the right place at the right time." He warns this guy about the scaffolding being loose on a job site, which again, like that, not your business, right? Like you don't belong there on a job site telling them that the scaffolding's loose and they should fix it. That's between them and the, that's between the business owner and the insurance company. That's the only two people who should be involved in that conversation. Kidding, jokes. That's terrible, and people are terrible, especially people who like to make money. Um. Anyway, the scaffolding, of course, gets loose. It throws a truck off course, and it crashes into Death by Caffeine, which is a place that they've been meeting, which is basically like the friend's coffee shop. You know, they've been revisiting this place called Death by Caffeine, and I think the person who wrote the Final Destination thought this was clever foreshadowing to the end. Um, but if you remember, the Final Destination had the freaking the escalator scene in it, where the girl got eaten by an escalator, and then instead they decide to do this, where they get killed in a coffee shop because a random like truck smashes through a window. Like, hate it. This is I want to shadow realm this one, but we need to talk about how awful it is and not forget. So this is like our 9/11 basically. Oh geez. Sorry guys, it's getting late and that just came right out. I didn't mean to be offensive, but it's not too soon. It's 2025. So there's a whole generation of people who've grown up. Who don't weren't there when it happened. So anyway, this is my 9/11. Um, I just I don't want to forget. It is actually better than what they did to the black guy. Um, the betrayal. Yeah, you know what? The thing is, so with Final Destination Bloodlines, there's the thing with the mom who sacrificed her death, and it's actually totally meaningless, we find out. And so like, ah, God, why did you make us watch all that? And so that is actually better than this one. I mean, sorry, that one is actually worse than this one. Because this one's like, yeah, like but you got them all killed. At least they finally all got killed, even if it's like cheap the way he did it right at the end. Um, but they did it. It's for real. They got killed in Death by Caffeine, by a random runaway truck. Instead of any of the cool ways they could have killed them before. Um, all right, so let's keep it on. We are just 3 kills away from the end. We're probably not gonna hit the 90-minute mark, but we'll be right over that. So hold tight, friends. We're living the dream here. Um, here is a kill that I do want to talk about. So in this heap of trash that we've been sifting through, you know how it is. Like you're digging in a bag of chips, and you've enjoyed every bite of the chip. Still thinking about chips, as you can see. And so all the chips are eaten, and you're just scrabbling down at the end, for those little crumbs. Well, sometimes you get, a good little crumb right at the end, like a little chip that's left or whatever. Here's one of them for us. I do have a lot of respect for this kill and this sequence, for Final Destination 3, where okay, so this is where again they were on the roller coaster. People got set up. The goth dude that we were talking about in a previous kill that gets smashed by the McKinley sign. He's in this one. Him and his girlfriend are all like, they're super cool goth people doing their whatever they're doing in a warehouse where they work. Um, and so they're like chilling together, like doing their thing at work, and the sorry, I just made some really bad lines because I wasn't thinking about what we were doing. So the guy is he's taking care of a pigeon problem, and the way that he's doing it is he's using a nail gun without a safety and shooting nails from a nail gun.
um, like at pigeons and killing pigeons. It's a fun way to think about doing it. I don't think you could actually do it based on the aerodynamics of nails. They kind of lose their speed real quick. Um, so because they're not built to do that. They're built to shoot into the thing, you know. Um, so he's also standing on a forklift. There's a magnet on a chain, sawdust on antifreeze. The rogue forklift starts moving. A lot of debris falls, and then the goth guy's girlfriend falls, and he gets shot multiple times in the back of the head with a nail gun. Um, it's very creative. Not one I would have ever expected to see. It's there is like it's very Rube Goldbergy, where it's like doing its thing, in the sequence of events that occurs. It seems like it's not going to happen, and then it does. There's a couple of like near misses. So I would give this one. This one's like to me like a fairly solid C. Um, if not like ranking up higher. It does the thing that you would want it to do for sure. It feels really good for this horror franchise. Obviously, we're not celebrating anybody's death per se. Per se, we're not celebrating anybody's death. We recognize that these are actors and actresses that spent time and money on set, you know, and we're like good job. You like made the story come together to like let us see this sort of stuff. The question is, where does it go? Um, I'd say it's better than the dream of the um, roller coaster. Um, it is better. Hmm. I think it's better than that. That's tough. So there's different reasons. The one that I want to rank it even with, or like even below, is the one at the end of Final Destination 5 where they find out that his nemesis was going to die any day anyway, and then the plane crashes through the building. Um, so yeah, just because that's such a fun shot. Yeah, I'd have to say it's like in C, but it's in the high-ish quarter of C. Um, cool. I will be pulling these all up so that you guys can see them. Um, Oh man. Okay. So we have practically saved the best for last. And so in the scrabbling down in the bottom, constraints you know what I'm saying. In the very bottom of this bag, uh, in the tasty treats of deaths in the Final Destination, we actually come across one that I do have a lot of respect for and do really appreciate this scene, for a number of reasons. The one that we'll address right away is obviously the fan service, which everyone's like, yeah, naked girls. That's where they spent their money to pay women to be naked. I suppose that might be more part of the budget. Win jokes. Yeah, this one's fun actually. That's part of the joke because someone was gonna say it. Um, Final Destination 3. There is two girls who are just like the ditzes, right? That's basically was their whole function, like during the opening sequence when we were meeting them, and they don't get a whole lot of extra character work beyond that, which is, it just they're this movie they're trying to deliver exactly what you would expect, which is like one of its biggest flaws. So that That is what it is, and we can keep saying it, but it's still gonna be true, true. So, that's what's going on with it. Um, they decide to do their basic, like Valley Girl thing or whatever, and go tan. So they decide to go tanning. Um, they were told by the people that they were not supposed to bring drinks in there, like they did last time, and then they pretend to throw them away, and they take them in anyway. Um, their eye masks get soaked with alcohol. Um, the guy gets distracted because he's on a phone call, which is why he doesn't see him take the drinks in there, and then he gets locked out of his business. Oh, excuse me. Um, they turn up the AC. The shelf is loose, and condensation from the drink turns the power on the tanning booths up. Um, the loose shelf is knocked out by the vibration of the main girl's phone call. And then the girls start cooking inside of the tanning booths. Um, there's something that like falls on top of them that like locks them in place too, so they can't get out. And then they're like trying to break out, and they fall into the broken glass and end up burning alive inside these tanning booths. It is horrific. Like if I was a person who tanned, I would not be down for tanning anymore. Like that would be too much claustrophobia. The sequence is real fun, the way that they shoot it. Again, like fan service, but then also the way that you like it becomes like because they play with it. You know what I mean? Like it's like um they're like, oh yeah, this is fun, right? Oh, you like, you like look at these girls, and then like you're like, oh, they're trapped. They're absolutely. This is not a fun time for anybody. Like this is actually like if you're aroused right now, like you're watching a snuff film, basically. Um, so right, like, and it's not, yeah. Anyway, that's it quickly becomes you're like this, yeah. You're just like horrified for them. Like the nakedness is more now about vulnerability than it is about like whatever eroticism. Yeah, and they go out in a really horrible, very memorable way. I do want to rank this one fairly high. I'm not sure about S, but I'm thinking probably like high A, high A tier for this one, just because it is super memorable. It does stand out in a weak movie. Um, it goes on for quite a time. You can tell it's where their budget's at too, because all these effects are not easy to pull off. The safety coordinators have to be involved, the angles, the lighting. Um, yeah, yeah. So let me see here. High A has the barbecue setup. Actually, that would definitely blow the barbecue setup out of the water. Um, so S tier has the rock being thrown. I think it's better than that. The guy being dragged down the street, the race is being dragged down the street. This one I think is slightly better than this. The MRI and Bobby. Wow, I think it actually, for the horror of it, it's actually better than that. Is it better than the pile up? Nah, I don't think it is. Okay, so yeah, that tanning death is ranked right below like the OG Final Destination kill. Um, so that's cool. I did not expect it to be there, but definitely I think it deserves that ranking. Um, so
here we are. And I'm sorry, but Final Destination movies sometimes end like this, and this is how we're gonna end the ranking too. So, um, thank you guys for listening this far. This is not quite the conclusion yet, but if you've caught all these rankings and been here with us, like I said, comment below if you think they're justified, not where they should be up higher, should be lower. Get indignant. I'd like to hear what you have to say about some of these rankings. Uh, because I believe I'm correct, but I can stand corrected, yeah, if people make good points. I'm interested. We are gonna end on this one. This is the last one on the list, and like I said, this is completely random. This is how sometimes Final Destination movies end, and this is how you will feel about Final Destination movie that's ending. Um, Final Destination 3 ends in this way. Right, Final Destination 3 again, we've talked about so many times, just how this is so weak. Uh, we see rats eating a candy bar on the subway, right? And the sister of the main character who has been trying to keep everybody safe shows up out of the blue while she's on this train. We see that the rat causes a short that makes the train switch tracks. And then we find out that all three of the survivors who have cheated death successfully are all on the same train, and they can't believe it. It derails, right? The sister's taken out, ex-boyfriend's friend is ground against the subway as they speed along, and there's another train on the train tracks, and the movie just ends with, this collision of trains. We actually don't know if they survive or not. I think they were trying to leave it open and ambiguous so that they could, have them like possibly come back in the next movie. They didn't, because the next movie is the Final Destination. Everyone was like, we don't want to, yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's that one. I think it's cheap. I think it's a robbery. It's just it's not. I don't feel wronged by it, so it's not like an F. But it's just like we have to kill them, so we're gonna do it this way. Um, so if we're looking at E, I guess it is worse than um the explosion from the the cars, and it is cheap. You know what? Actually, it is F. Oh God, it is F because it's such a cheap kill. Um, yeah, actually, it's kind of in the same league as the death by caffeine in the coffee shop kills. Um, yep, those are kind of like neck and neck in my opinion. And that's why both of these movies leave such a bad taste in my mouth, is they end on these notes that are just so cheap. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't say this more egregious than the other ones, so it's kind of right here. I'm just gonna say that it's like second because it's second on the list, but they're pretty much the same for being a bad way to end these movies. And there you have it. I guess we did make it to the 90-minute mark and wrapped up right on time. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. This has been Cox and Space behind the scenes podcast, Flicker and Skip, where I've been working on some animatics for Cox and Space. Right now, just cleaning up this scene to get it clear so I can have Richard on there and have him run down the hallway. Um, yeah, if you want to find out more, go to coxandspace.com. We do appreciate you checking us out and all the ways that you do. And we'll talk to you later. Bye. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the same episode you were just listening to. Because I didn't really think what we're about to go over would warrant a whole episode. So I figured I would just give you the numbers, break them down for you. I hope that you can see here on screen. Whoop. We have it there. I'm sort of teasing and tantalizing. I did some coloring. I did some note taking, to kind of summarize and make this whole thing nice and neat. And I figured we'd kind of look at the kills in relation to like how they stack up over the movies, kind of what we were thinking about, what it all added up to. So. Logan is here somewhere. He might pop in or out, uh, but he has approved the list. So what you see here on the left-hand side of the screen is the rankings. We started, there's some that we didn't talk about because they got into the shadow realm. But we have the lowest ranked here is F. It goes up as you would expect, using the alphabet, and then top tier is S. Um, so it took us a bunch of episodes to get through it. Episode four, I think, is the one we're listening to right now, right? So it was definitely a lot. That's a lot of films to go through. There's six in the series. Fantastic franchise. Highly recommend getting through even the ones that are weaker. For some specific reasons, we had some surprises, as you probably noticed as you've gone through the series. That really, that really popped out. And I was hoping to break those numbers down so you can kind of like look at like what we're looking at, so that you can be like, okay, cool, I see why, right? So one of the big things we want to start off right at the beginning here, I'm going to scroll down. If you guys don't like spreadsheets, I'm really sorry. This episode is going to be kind of like not your thing, but also spreadsheets are good because it helps us assimilate information, and information always tells us things and sometimes surprising things, right? So I'm going to be circling right here. I might have wandered around, but again, I'm just going to have you look right here, and I'll probably zoom in on the screen so you can see it. So based off just the tiers, like where they fell, what the scores were, what I had them do is basically like look up what tier they were in, and when they were in a tier, say super, they're in the super tier, they got a 4 points for every time they're in that tier. And you'll see some of the numbers are broken out here. We'll see them much clearer below here as well. But then add those numbers up to see how many times they ended up in super, and A and B and whatever. And then once you get past like the C mark, like what we kind of expect in the movie, we get into like things where like, yeah, this is probably not. This is why it would take away from the movie. E, is what it was, and then F is really for us like the betrayals. Um, and let me sum up some betrayals real quick. The lowest betrayal, dirtiest deed done in the Final Destination series is this black security guard who we've been following. He'd been trying to kill himself, like he was funny, like he was a great character, and then he just gets bust out of nowhere. And now there's only does he get bust out of nowhere, he gets bust twice out of nowhere. It was a dirty, dirty kill. The Final Destination, shame on you, and it reflects in your score. The other one right above that is in Final Destination Bloodlines, which is a great film. But the mom who had been like evading death for a real, real long time sacrifices herself, or like promises that she'll stay strong and safe. She gets sacrificed as the butt of a joke. Um, and so like all of her hard work pays off for nothing. And then you find out that she doesn't even protect her kids, like the whole situation, it's kind of like, so bad on you, Final Destination Bloodlines. Although again, great, great, great movie. Top of my list. We'll look at the rankings in a second. The subway wreck at the end of Final Destinations 3, where they're like, "Oh crap, we gotta just kill them somehow." Ooh, they're accidentally on the subway and there's rats eating the wires, and the huge train wreck caused. Which is basically a Final Destination movie in itself because someone has a premonition on that train. Obviously, I can't believe we haven't seen it yet. So I could write that movie if you guys want. I got Final Destination down on lock. So there's the pitch. And then the worst betrayal, of course, is the Final Destination, but it's really the weakest and it's like, in the movie, like, yeah, of course they're gonna betray it. Is at the end of the Final Destination when they already have a fantastic ending in the middle of it where she's eaten by an escalator, like our hero's girlfriend is eaten by an escalator. Um, they instead get them all together to this place that been making this joke called Death by Caffeine, and kill them with a rogue bus or something truck there, I think. Anyway, so and that sort of shows like like stuff like that being like those four black eyes. They actually they show when the Final Destination gets two of them, and then you show we have a more granular look here in a second. Then that's a -6. So they really have to come back hard from that. Which is difficult to do, but you see, just based off the tier, like just based off of whether they're super A, B, C, D, E, or F, then Final Destination 2 won out with 16 points for saying that it was the best. What we saw is that it just ranks high overall. Like it got a good super, it got three A's right off the bat, it got a couple of B's. It hits our C as kind of the expectation that you was expected. It has like one minor black eye in it. The minor black eye is where, yeah, of course, where her friends who've been set up to like suddenly get killed, and we're presented with a whole bunch of randos instead, which is fine for like a Final Destination movie. But at the same time, like, why introduce those characters? Why like have us like her friends if they're just gonna kill them with a semi? So that that's a fair black eye on it. Right after that, you see Final Destination's Bloodlines came in second, so 16 and 15. So we did like it a fair amount. You'll see that this one really takes super a lot. Like it owned the rank that it was in. Like it keeps delivering. So if you want to see a Final Destination movie, my recommendation is Final Destination Bloodlines, because look at these freaking kills, right? And then it goes ABC, like it just hits them. It's like, okay, cool. We deliver good ones, we deliver mediums, we deliver, like the average, and then it just gets this terrible black eye. Is the one that I mentioned. Is that just there's this big buildup. You can see where all the budget is spent and all this drama is going on, and then it's just wasted. It's like why? Like why even do that? So it pays for it a little bit. It gets that docked points, but overall it didn't do too bad in the rankings. If it wasn't for that, obviously that -3, it would have taken, like, you could either take it out and it would just go up to 18 and it would take the lead here, or you replace it with another kill, of equal or less or greater value. Anything's greater value than that, right? And then there's a sudden and steep drop off in the rankings, right? So Final Destination 2 is fantastic in our opinion. Final Destination Bloodlines is fantastic. And then from 15, 16, and 15 is the ranking, it drops off half as much to Final Destination 5. So for Final Destination 5, here's the thing, is it has like a couple middling scores, cool. It's got a super, which is good. And then it has like a good kill and like an average, like these are all decent. But then it's these three kills right here. So that's a -3 on its point value. And then it's taking out basically all of the average kills that it had, and then part of one of the B kills. So all you're talking about is half B, which is 2 points, I think. And then so you have 1 point there, and then you have 4 points from that with the and then 8 altogether. Yeah, it's just because it has half this point. Like the negatives of this movie, which actually should be talked about because they're pretty aggressive as far as like the scoring goes later. Too, you'll see that some of them are the lowest. Like this Final Destination kill, which they spend a long time on, this murder in the restaurant where the friend comes back and he decides that he can trick death into not taking him if he takes someone else's life, and since the girl survived, he can take her life. And so they fight like through this whole area with all these things that death could intervene but doesn't. So that brings you like, yeah, it's there, it's fine, it's fun, but and then also Roy getting hooked in the dude's place. I think one of the things is that it introduces this idea that death can be tricked in if you take somebody else's life, and this is the movie that they introduce it in. But also, it's one of the foundational movies apparently because it predates the first movie. Clever twist, really fun premise. I 100% support it. I think in my heart, like it holds again, it holds the I love this movie as being part of this franchise, but it doesn't maintain the same rules, right?
Um, and so if it's true that, you could have done that from the beginning, then there's a whole lot of lore that maybe would have changed if people would have known that anyway, going forward from this accident. So and the guy gets hooked instead. It's kind of like a quick thing that happens, and then we know that we're robbed later too. And then David Koechner gets killed, which we're saying is like, promising, but doesn't have any like Rube Goldberg to it. It's more just like a surprise kill than anything else. It's probably one of the best surprise kills. Like the girlfriend getting hit by the bus, and the gym rat getting his head smashed. Like those are fun, but then it's like, meh. And then so those scores kind of like sucked up the Final Destination. That's why it kind of drops off there. And then you see at the end we have this tie, right, with Final Destination 3 and The Final Destination. And so they both have a -2, as predicted, right? We dogged on these movies a lot, and we didn't intentionally rank them like this, because as you see, The Final Destination here has two super rankings. So they really put it in. Actually, let me call them out again because they are really cool. There's this racist who gets dragged by his tow truck while he's on fire, and the music's playing "Why Can't We Be Friends?" As the black guy who he's planning to kill and plant the cross on his lawn is watching and kind of mystified at the whole thing happening because he had no part of it whatsoever. And then so just death having a sense of humor. It's high ranked in my opinion. That kill is so goddamn funny. Like that scene itself, and the same thing with the one after it too. The lawnmower kill. Um, like I downright dogged on the Final Destination, dogged on it. But I'm gonna pull these two kills out, and I will say that these ones I would watch like outside the movie, no problem again. Um, and also, I mean, you see that the other rating they got is in B, which is the false ending escalator eating the girlfriend. Like, that these are just like some really like primo scenes in this movie that is otherwise, fine, you know. And so like yeah, like that and so like it does get those scores, but then you see like the rest of the scores it gets, they're hitting like just these ones where you're like double D's, double E's, double F's. I mean, we've talked about the F's twice. Like, why this movie? You're like, oh, come on, please. The race car premonition, and maybe it's that I didn't see it in 3D. Oh, we'll have to check it in 3D. Maybe I'll do a follow up if I check it out in 3D. I'm like, whoa, guys, it's totally great. Same thing with Mechanic Through the Fence. I couldn't see the value in it, but again, maybe it's because of the 3D. Guys, comment below if you've seen it in 3D and you're like, yes, that totally makes a difference. You should absolutely see it, and I'll check it out and give you a reaction to it. And then the Final Destination has um, some just like fine ones. The cowboy crush, the cowboy miscellaneous cowboy who doesn't have a name gets crushed by a bathtub. It's over the top, but it's funny. Um, we don't care about this person. We don't even know who he is. It kind of just cuts to him, so it's like just random carnage. Um, so I bet you that scene again is probably fun in 3D, and that might be the one of the big things I'm missing for this. Maybe it was I couldn't see it as much as I could in Final Destination 5, where I could see that it would be fun to do that. And then, of course, the other one in D is the pools suck. There's a lot of lead on for that. There's a lot of just like gratuitous nonsense when the guy finally gets, his intestines sucked out. Um, but uh, look at the Final Destination though as these rankings. Like, just look at them. They're just like you get extreme ups and you get a lot of extreme downs. So that's a tough movie to watch. Um, and then if you look at again Final Destination 3, you see that it's like it did get a super, let me call that the one super that it got, the tanning bed deaths, which man, again, it's in the middle of this movie where I didn't have a lot of fun watching that movie. But the tanning bed deaths, like the girls sold it. And it really that's a fun kill. It definitely makes me never want to tan. So that's what Final Destination is for. I think that as far as an OSHA PSYOP goes, that's what they're trying to do. And so they've made safety first in my household too with tanning beds. So just kidding, but maybe, right? Maybe. So and then
it hits kind of average. You can see Final Destination 3 is kind of average, and that has the black guy that we talked about, the subway wreck, which is mediocre, and then the two like minor things you're like, yeah, there's things that happen in those movies, where a guy gets killed by an engine block that somehow gets knocked out of the car. We talked about it at length, and then um, there's some random deaths as people run around a carnival where a flagpole catches a kid and a dude smashed by. They've made a really obvious point of like, my family name is McKinley, and then he gets, crushed by his family name. It's probably a statement. I don't know what I mean, but anyway. So that's kind of how they weighed out. As you can see, like, I think we were pretty fair. Comment if you disagree with some of these rankings. I will put them up on the screen. I'm not going to read them all out because we did go through them, but I'll make sure that you get a chance to look at like the entire list, so you can see like what it is. I try to make pretty clear notes, like just like really quickly sum up what it was. Um, Things that are the most memorable, probably, from those moments, or at least from what we talked about. One thing I want to talk about also is here how it got a little bit more granular, because I wanted to check this out too because I was interested. What you're seeing, guys, here is these little numbers next to them. That is where they stand in the rankings of the tiers. So you see that the super for the Final Destination 2 is actually up here, right in the middle, because it's hitting at like a point 0.5. So it's hitting like, it's an average super. Well, this Final Destination ranking is a point 0.8. Um, and that would be right here, the restaurant premonition, because it was good for that. So Logan was the one who pointed out that we should be making sure that we're paying attention to the ranking within even the box itself, within that tier. And we did. We tried to we paid careful and close attention to it, so that we can. What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the same episode again. Did you hear that long pause I just had, where I basically lost my train of thought as far as what I was doing with this project? It was at that very second, while I was making that portion of the video for you, that I realized that I didn't have weighted graphs. So basically, remember, okay, you remember that a few seconds ago, me, it was like a couple of days ago, I laugh at the difference in time. I'm making fun of myself, but basically, so I was telling you that each of these tiers get a point value, and then they get a ranking within that point value. But then also I realized you need to be weighting the point value that they get, because even if the Final Destination 8 is getting, or the Final Destination Bloodlines is getting the eighth ranking, the highest ranking that you can in Super, you should also recognize that it's in a Super tier. So that zero point 0.8 is multiplied by 4, giving you a 3.2 score. And so that way it like kind of points out how like being really good is really beneficial in your final score, and being really bad is really negative in your final score. And so what you get instead is this. If you look at this graph here, so we were looking at the tiers, and it's 16, 15, 8, -2, -2, 0 for Final Destination. And then you see that in the actual reckoning of like where they stand in their kills, Final Destination Bloodlines takes the lead with a 23.9, because in its rankings of taking the 3.2, a 2.4, and a 1.2 in the ranking in Super, it gets an additional bonus points of 8.9, taking it into the lead, like I kind of predicted earlier in this video. Like, it feels like they're neck and neck, which is kind of true. It seems like maybe it's a little bit lesser, but then if you look specifically at the kills and how we appreciate those kills, yeah, it takes it up there. Now, no shame on Final Destination 2. It's really good. It holds its own. It gets bonus points for being, super average, and then it has like a couple of negatives like we talked about before too. I also, what I did is I graphed out these. Guys, the thing is, I think in a few minutes I'm going to tell you that I got really hyper fixated, and then I end the video as if I'm not going to work on it anymore. And then, of course, this is why this interlude is happening, is because I went and worked on it more. So pre-joke to that joke. Spoilers.
So I also added the graphs here because I wanted to see, based off their score, this final score, like how we rank them in the range. So because of the point value, these point values right here puts them in the super score for Final Destination 2 and Final Destination Bloodlines. And the A tier movie is Final Destination 5, again based off its kills. Like it's superior to the other ones as far as we're concerned. But then one thing that I found surprising is that both the original Final Destination, Final Destination 3, and the Final Destination, those all got D scores. I thought they were going to rank lower, but what you're looking at is here is like they're just generally not bad. Like they're just below average. And so I think people sneeze on the Final Destination as a series because of these three movies, which is it's kind of fair. Like if you're like hoping for the franchise and you have to wait till the fifth movie for it to kick off the promise that they gave you in the second, that's a tough promise because that's like a decade. But if you guys are just getting into the Final Destination, like here at a good time. Anyway, so that's how that affects the scores. Back to the video, and I'll see you guys later. Was that between? It's like in my mind tied. Final Destination 2 and Final Destination Bloodlines. Like I'm so glad that that movie exists. Like we did the series at this time, and we can end with Final Destination Bloodlines because what a fantastic like support to the franchise. So if you guys haven't seen it, I'm not a paid shill for them, but I could be if they would call me up and return my phone calls. But as of right now, I'm just supporting the fact that yeah, this is a great movie, and it really like caps off. It's worth watching all the movies to get to that point, but also you could watch Final Destination Bloodlines all by itself, which is like really good on their part. They're kind of rebooting the franchise for a new generation, and they're doing it justice. So that's why I'd recommend it. You see, like again, and if you're an old school horror fan who's seen Final Destination 2 and was like, oh man, they've really been slagging off, and they really have been. But like you see that as far as we're concerned, people will watch these movies and like really compare them. And if you want to go back and check to see if our rankings are correct, but like or if you agree with them, right? But like they these two movies are like neck and neck with each other. You see still a significant falling off in Final Destination 5. It doesn't really redeem itself. It kind of gets what you would think. It's like a middling sort of score overall with what it got. It's not too offensive. It's not too, like it kind of hits what it gets. 8.5 isn't bad though. And then Final Destination actually, turns out to be a little bit worse than we were expecting. There's some things that like kind of drag it down. And I think it's that some of these like where they're at, like the Final Destination, the Final Death in France, the girlfriend getting hit by a bus, like that it has so many in the D category, and then some of them are just ranked like so low. It kind of like gets it when it doesn't have really high scores at all. So it's like basically zero. One of the things I did want to point out was this is Final Destination 3 and the Final Destination. Now they look like neck and neck when you just look at like how many are in the same tier, right? But if you look at where they're ranked in the tier, you see that the Final Destination, the Final Destination 3 and the Final Destination is totally different. Um, there's at least a significant distinction between the two of them where if you when you start to look at the ranks of the kills, not just whether how many they have, but like that it's now a negative 3.7 instead, because they're hitting the lowest, well they've got 2 and F of course, but they're hitting the lowest down there, and then also they have the really lowest scores in E as well, and D. So um, bad, right? Not great for them. Um, I think there might be a way to measure those where I'm taking in account that it's also magnified because of the category that it's in. But I think that's significant enough to see the deviation that would occur anyway. I think probably. Um, Man, anyway, I was joking with Logan before we rolled that I have obsessed too much about these rankings, and so I'm like, there's more that I want to do, but there's other projects I'm actually supposed to be doing, and ranking Final Destination movies is just supposed to be like a side thing that we talk about while we work on the animatics, not a thing that you create full spreadsheets over. Anyway. So those are the big surprises, conclusions of this review of Final Destination. I really hope that you liked it. If you did, of course, like and comment and share.
We would like to hear your feedback on this, whether you like the series, what your thoughts are as far as the ranking goes. We are going to do another, not ranking probably so much, but like a review like we did of Tarantino. Where the next one we're going to do is Christopher Nolan, and we're probably going to spend some time on that one because he's one of my favorite directors. So I'm going to watch a couple of them. It might be a couple weeks before you see a new episode. Um, or we might just start with the ones that I already know are the weakest and move up to my favorite films. Uh, but we'll probably do like, like this, maybe we'll only do like two or three movies a session and then get to it. If that's something you're into, thumbs up. Um, or, just scroll away or whatever. If you're not, that's cool also. Thank you so much for sitting around for the final conclusion of the numbers. I hope you guys found that enlightening. So this is Skip Morazzi, your host and friend, and we will catch you soon. Oh, also you can catch us at coxspace.com, COX in space.com. All right, bye.